Thank you for downloading another episode of Blueprint to Ultra, hosted by me, Stephen Epifano, and Jeff Winchester. Can you ever talk enough about running? I don't think so. And that's why we do this. We also want to make sure that we bring you some tips, tricks, and techniques to add to your own blueprint in your ultra running journey. Interviewing guests about their journey and what they have learned along the way is our way of adding to your blueprint. This episode's guest is no exception. It is a big race coming up in the early part of May, the Sedona 125, which is run along with the Cocodona 250, Maker's Traverse, and Eldon Crest races. I met him when I was back on the East Coast for the holidays, and I can't wait to grab some miles with him on my next trip out there. He has been featured in 2 Runner's World issues and 1 Runner's World book. He owns Greater Than Endurance Coaching as a standout paddleboard instructor, and it challenges everyone to get outside and challenge yourself. Welcome, Todd Pollock, to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jeff. Excited to be here.
Todd, we are stoked to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and like we do with everybody, we try to get into a little bit of the background. So what got you started? I know we sent some pre-race, we could say pre-race, but pre-podcast interview questions, just so we get to know you a little bit more.
Yep.
And then you said you pretty much were always a runner, but there was a line, kind of a demarcation between pre-marriage and post-marriage and kids.
Yeah, definitely. Before kids, growing up through high school and, all the sports from basketball, cross country, ran there, pole vault, believe it or not. And then college, a lot of intramurals and whatnot. Post-college, mostly mountain biking, still a little bit of running, but running was not my thing. But when it became running post-kids, I still remember after having my first child, my daughter, a couple years went by. I remember I had to buy the biggest size pants I ever had to get. It was 36. And I just remember putting them on going, this isn't me. This isn't me. I got to do something about it. So decided to start running, picked a local 5K. Going like, I'm going to do this 5K. I'm just going to get back into it. And that just kept exponentially going. And that was like around 2007 I started.
So what I find interesting about that is that you said before marriage, you were a pretty big runner, if you will. You were definitely field and everything. And then you get married, 2007, you have a man in the mirror type moment where you look at yourself and I'm like, I am not who I thought I was.
Yeah.
And you get back into running. And one thing that we have found, both Steve and I, we talk to different athletes that we coach, but we are also runners, right? Yep. We often deal with this comparison problem when we look at ourselves now versus where we were before. Yep. So when you got back into running, like again, how did you compare yourself or avoid comparing yourself to the old Todd, and how did that drive how you moved forward?
Boy, good question. That's a good question because you're right. I kept thinking, why did you stop mountain biking? Why did you stop running? And I just I looked at it from a health perspective, to be perfectly honest. Like, I just didn't feel healthy. I felt lethargic. I literally just worked all day, sat at night, and something just screaming, it wasn't me. And I needed an outlet. I needed to become who I knew I was at that time. And just running was always that thing for me. So comparing it, I really, and I kind of think I used the term chapter, I just felt like I was starting a new chapter. I distinctly remember getting on a treadmill going, just going to start, the whole adage, one foot in front of one of the other. And that 5K that I did, it just like any first race, it hurt, but I could still feel going across that finish line, like the exhilaration. I'm like, that's awesome. Like it just propelled myself. And I wasn't comparing myself, to, again, before marriage and that type of running. It just felt new, it felt different, and it felt awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. So
amazing.
Yeah. So 2007, you started this journey back into running.
Yep.
We know from our pre-race, pre-questions, pre-podcast things, whatever Steve was calling them earlier. We know from that in 2013 you did the rim to rim to rim.
Yep.
And you described it as your first ultra. But is that the trajectory? Is that like you just begin to increase distance and more? It was rim to rim to rim the goal of doing an ultra, or was that it just happened to like?
It just happened. Let's keep going with the chapter theme. You're right. It was kind of exponential. 5K. Okay, I can do a 5K. And let's see if I can do a 10K. And these are all road races. So then that kind of progressed, and then the half marathon. And then for a good number of years, like 2009, 10-ish, it was about marathons. So I was able to do my first marathons, and quickly, Boston Marathon. That was everything in my life was about Boston Marathon. I had to get to Boston. And so kept with the road marathons, and some quick stories about that. So I decided to obviously train for Boston. And I did, I think, what everyone did at that time. And even though the internet was young, went online, hey, here's a training program, and followed it. I'm type A, followed it, didn't listen to my body. And yeah, I got injured. Like, I didn't make it to the first starting line for my first marathon. And then I found online, which kind of ties into my Runner's World connection. Again, we're still talking, 2010, where, Facebook wasn't a thing, but Runner's World came out with this group saying, basically an online group of trainers and one Runner's World Challenge. And I joined it, and it was the best thing. Great coaching, great bunch of people that I'm still friends with. And then that got me to the starting line and the finish line of my first road marathon. And yeah, that really drove me again about Boston. And my first attempt at Boston, I didn't even come close to qualifying. I signed up for another marathon. It was about 3 months later, about 2 minutes off from qualifying, and I was ticked off at that, and decided to sign up for another marathon like 2 or 3 months later, because my mind had all this fitness built up. I can get there if I just kind of keep going to it. And then the third marathon, which is a story in itself, it was pretty cool. I felt great going into it. You reserve the hotel. It was up in the Poconos area, like a couple hours north of here. I woke up in the morning, didn't pick the best hotel. That was one of the first lessons learned. Pick a hotel that you're comfortable in, horrible bed, horrible room, everything. I woke up, had a headache. I felt horrible. I didn't sleep. And I remember sliding my legs off going, okay, today's not the day. I'm just going to go out. Whatever happens, happens. Like, I literally I just thought it wasn't going to happen. Started the race, still had the headache, still wasn't feeling great, but just started running. And I remember by mile 3, headache was gone. Everything was clicking, like everything, like I was in the zone, just felt great. And then that was the day I qualified for Boston. It was the craziest thing.
What drove you? Like, why Boston? Was it just something that was out there? And because I've worked with a client, so she finally hit it, but it was like 11 marathons. And that's like a big drive for that.
Yeah. So
why Boston?
I think it was just that epitome. Like, if you can get to Boston, you're a pretty okay, runner. It's a good question. I don't know the why. If I go back to that time, I just thought it was something. It was that carrot. It was that bar to achieve. I don't know. I'm telling you, like, every ounce. You should see. I have a folder here of my prep work for Boston. I had papers of from what I ate and the pace and everything for it. It was crazy. And then when I got to Boston, I was like so enthralled, like, all these people, and all I was doing was like going left and right, high-fiving, because like I never had that. You're never in a race where there's wall-to-wall people the entire length. And I just remember in the middle of them, like, I looked down and I swear I did an extra mile just because I kept weaving back and forth, high-fiving everybody. But the why of Boston, I think it was just, that was it for me at the time. That if I can do Boston, I could kind of do anything.
That's fascinating. I think there's a parallel here in ultra running, even that there's a lot of stuff. I will point at myself for this as well, that want to do Western States, and it begins to be this thing that just drives like this almost like penultimate type goal that we have, and it doesn't always make sense.
Right.
Like, it's just, I know I want to do Western States, and if you were to ask me, why do you want to do Western States? I'm like, I don't know. It's just because I feel like I need to do Western States. Right. And it's like, it is the goal, if you will. And again, it may not be the race for everybody, and Boston's not the race for everyone, but I think in road running, Boston is a very similar parallel to what Western States is too. And I think if you ask a lot of people, why do they actually want to run Western States? They're going to come up with a very similar answer. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like I need to. And I think that resonates, I think, with a lot of folks. But when you couldn't qualify those lows, how did you stay motivated? Because like, I'm still trying to get into Western States. I'm never going to get a golden ticket. So I have to kind of keep getting
a lottery,
getting lottery tickets every year. And we go to the lottery and they don't pick my number or my name or whatever it is, so I don't get selected. How did you stay motivated to continue to push forward in that goal? Because for those who are listening who may want to do Western States or want to do some of these other races that they're targeting, or maybe they want to go sub 24 or sub 6 in a 50K or sub 5 in a 50K, whatever their goal is that they have, they don't hit it. How did you stay motivated to continue to pursue that?
That's another good question. I think I didn't. This sounds really weird. I was afraid of letting myself down. Is that thing internal? I knew I can do it. I knew I can do it. I knew I can qualify. And it was just like a lesson learned. Those failures were just lesson learned. I literally did learn something the entire time. One of the races I failed, the big lesson I learned was I end up stopped fueling as I should around mile 20. Like I was just running great. And I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't have to eat, I'll just take a couple sips. And then I hit that, not proverbial, I literally felt like I hit that wall in mile 20 and everything just slowed down. My pace just went off. So I learned that lesson. So the time I qualified on the watch, I did the every 30 minutes, a little ching and eat something, a gel, whatever it might be. So it's just something I knew I can do. I felt it was just out of my grasp, and it drove me. Again, I think I'm type A, and that just plays into it as well.
Yeah.
I like on the day that you qualified, you didn't think you were going to, and you took the pressure off yourself, which I think helps a lot for us if we can kind of remove some of that.
I look back to that too and wondered if I didn't just relax into it and let it go, which is things I've learned too. But yeah, I just what happens. And it was a great day.
Awesome. So from Boston to 2013, rim to rim to rim, one of the most impactful experiences of your life, you said.
Yep.
How so?
I like, and you're going to hear me refer to it a lot, I like adventures. Yes, I like doing races, but you rarely hear me say a race. It's an adventure to me. It's with a bunch of other people. Yes, it's timed. And that wasn't an adventure. And I remembered, even before we did it, I always wanted to see the Grand Canyon, but I knew I just didn't want to stand on the edge. I wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I want to experience it all. So I didn't know that was going to be rim to rim to rim. I just knew I wanted to go down into it. And again, that was 2012. Again, Facebook was still a baby. And the people that I went with, I met online. I'm still trying to figure out how I actually connected to them. But all I know it was we met on Facebook and we formed this group of people, mostly all strangers. And we got to this one guy's house. We planned it like a year in advance. It was impactful because right there, that camaraderie with the people, which I'm a friend still to this day with almost every single one of them. We did something together that was not official. And then it was impactful. In fact, just before I jumped on, when I get choked up thinking about it, I looked at a video I took that morning, the day it was actually, and I didn't tell the group, it was my birthday that day that we did this. And I remember just thinking it was a birthday present to myself. And we got down to the bottom, we're crossing the Colorado River, and I was taking a picture of the sun, coming up. And I hear my voice there. That's why I'm getting choked up now, how impactful that was. Just being out in nature, just running with my friends in nature. It's to this day, I can still feel and remember everything about that trip. And a lot of people ask me, would you do it again? Would you do rim to rim again? I know people have done it multiple times. I wouldn't. It was too perfect. I don't want to screw that memory up. Now, would I go back and maybe run to the bottom, camp out for the night, and like kind of mix it up or something? Definitely. But that day was literally perfect in every way, just the experience. The other thing too, the group of us, we stuck together, gone to the north side. And then on the way back, a couple people stopped and then we just kind of split up. So for the portion going back, I was by myself. And I think that moment, just being by myself, literally disconnected from everything, I just felt myself. I'm like, that was it. Like from that point on, I'm like, no more road races. This is it. I'm just going to run on dirt. And that was it.
I think there's a couple things in there that are pretty impactful, like you said. One is, as adults, as we get older, like I always think back to, or just see my kids play on the playground. they'll just go up to any kid and they'll just start playing, we're friends now. And I kind of equate that to the running community. It's like, oh, you run, I run, we're friends now. Do you want to go on a run? Yeah. It's like, hey, when I moved here, somebody hit me up. Like, I see you were in San Clemente too. Do you want to go on a run? And my wife was like, this is a stranger. I was like, yeah, but they run. And I verified it on Instagram. So what the heck? Try now. So I like that community aspect because it's hard to meet friends when you're a little bit older, because I think it's more that like we have our guard up, but then when there's that common interest and you're just like, you're like a kid again almost, like, oh, yeah, we're best friends now because we run. That's it. And then getting to experience nature like that, that's like the best part, is just being out in nature. I find like that's where you can just like kind of let go of everything. And that's, you get back to what humans were supposed to do, you know, even going back to like 100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a quote this week that resonated with me about a kind of nature, and it was, go places where you feel whole exactly as you are. And that's that quote is it's me. Yeah, I felt whole being there. You know, there was nothing that could top it.
I like that a lot. I think that's a really cool quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I run, Steve, not to make friends because I run alone, but that's beside the point.
I mean, I do too, but then it's like when you're out there, like, oh, you run too. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. But this is why I don't have friends, though. Because I work and I podcast and I run solo. Like, I don't have time for anybody. That's awesome. Well, it's funny because, you know, the main race we want to talk to you about today was your A race, and it is in Sedona, which is also considered an incredibly beautiful place. And so I think there's a lot of experiences that you're going to have in the Sedona 125 that's coming up that you may find will parallel again to what you experienced at the Grand Canyon. So we do want to talk about your A race, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We want to unpack it a lot. You know, we just, on our previous guest was Rachel Entrekin, who is running the Cocodona 250. The Sedona 125 is one of the races in Cocodona Week, if you will, that Aravaipa puts on. And so for those that are not familiar with the Sedona Canyons 125, I'll just give you a quick overview. It is half of the Cocodona 250. So if you are interested in one day running the Cocodona 250 and you're not sure if you should do or can do that distance, this is a great 125, and that's opportunity to kind of see, from what I understand, some of the most beautiful spots of this entire race, but also doesn't have that beginning part, which really sucks in the Cocodona 250. Right, Steve?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't know about how beautiful it is because, like I said before, I've only seen it at night. So hopefully you get a little bit better view of that. Yeah, I always roll into Sedona. It's pitch black. So,
all right. So that's awesome. So a little bit more. It's 125 miles. 125 miles. It is 125 miles point to point with 14,775 feet of gain and 12,463 feet of loss. And so for 125 miles, that's not out of the ordinary high. That's not like something that's not achievable. And so that's another great positive of this, you know, opportunity I think that you'll have. You also have 75 hours to get it done. Before the show, myself, Steve, and Brooklyn, who helps us on the podcast, we were talking about this. Like, it's a really long cutoff that you have. How do you think this experience is going to go for you? Like when you look at that 75 hours, are you planning on using all 75 hours, or do you want to kind of do, you know, like, what is the goal really for the race?
So 2 points on that. I'm struggling with that mentally. When I say struggling, I'm trying to figure it out, obviously, for many reasons, for my crew chief. So one thing I do, especially with big races like this, and thanks to the help with ChatGPT, I always look at previous year's results, my male 50, 59, get the results, figure out the average, because I know I'm always mid to 75% back of that. Just to give me, I just need a ballpark, you know. So I did that, and it kind of spit back, I think it was in a ballpark of about 50 some odd hours, like around 52 to 55. So I'm like, okay, there's that time frame. And to your point, have 75 hours. So there's plenty of time, potentially. The other thing that's been kind of happening is the universe is just lining me up. I have been meeting so many people, including even last weekend. I met somebody that's running the 125. I met someone last weekend. I met someone in the middle of a 100K a couple weeks ago, just ran up, saw her. We started talking. She's, this is training room. Oh, me too. I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, the Sedona 125. I'm like, oh my God, so am I, So I met her, and then my coach introduced me to someone. So there's like, I now have like 6 people that were all going to run solo, but now like I kind of honestly want to, I think, run with them. So like part of me is thinking, if we can not maybe all stay together the entire time, but I think what's going to help me, I love talking, being with someone the entire time, and I have no pacers. I have a crew chief, but if I have someone with, I think it's going to make the experience, whether it's 50 hours or 74 hours and 30 minutes, just a whole lot better. That's my thing.
So the goal isn't about time. It's really just about the experience.
It's definitely about the experience. Yeah, it's definitely about the experience and just playing it smart. I'm really trying not to throw time out. Time, again, is only for just, I feel, to give my crew chief kind of an idea where I'm at and making sure I have the right clothes at the right drop off for night. Just I think I'm more concerned from that perspective, from a logistics perspective. But yeah, I just want to finish.
Well, before I move on, because I would be probably yelled at by somebody, a listener at least, would say to me, he just mentioned he used Chat GPT to research race results for 50 to 59-year-olds. Can you unpack that one more time for those who are like, what did he say?
Yeah, so you take, depending, like if there's links to a race result, so I put in the link of the race results last year, and if it has, mail with the stats that you need, it will slice and dice it and do the average for you, so you don't need to do it. I used to literally go and like download, or just even look a filter to that, and even kind of look in the middle, which you can kind of still do. But yeah, I just did that just to figure out what the average was.
Technology, of course. Todd, you're in IT. We already know that in advance.
Yeah.
So
I even used it when I was researching, equipment and stuff. I basically asked it. I said, "Can you find any blogs or anything?" And I worded it much better than I'm verbalizing to you guys right now. Basically, any blogs of anyone that has run Cocodona or Sedona with what vest they wore, and it came back blogs, and then it gave me the blogs, and then it literally summarized and gave me the links to the vests, like too. So I just like, okay, here we go. So yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah,
it's a good tool. It's a good tool.
Yeah. If you know how to use it, it's been a phenomenal
exactly.
tool. Yep.
I hope it can run the race for you.
I should ask it. So
yeah. So in our stalking that we've done, we do stalking on all of our guests through Ultra Sign Up and things like that.
Yeah.
Looks like this is going to be the longest race that you've taken on so far.
Yep.
What's the driver behind that? Is it just another adventure? Is it something you wanted to put on your calendar?
No, at one point, and till this point, I have a running joke with myself. I said I would never need to run 100 again, but I'm not running 100. I'm running 125. You know what the driver was? So last year, I had a friend. I was supposed to pace. I got injured last year, so I was a crew chief for her. She was doing the 250 at Cocodona last year, so I was just going to be driving the truck, driving her pacers around. Flew out. She unfortunately had to drop out early on, so me and the other pacers, we decided to help other people, and there was other people that needed help. We literally just went to the aid stations, and I'm still friends with these people today too, and they end up pacing, and I just drove everybody around and other pacers around. And so that whole experience is awesome. But then obviously at the finish line in Heritage Center and Flagstaff, that was amazing. I did not expect to be emotionally overwhelmed, just the simple role I was playing. I was so invested in the runners I helped, but seeing everybody cross was amazing. And then we're standing there at the finish line. My 2 new friends, who I'm still good friends with today, that were out there helping. And they looked at me and they went, "You're going to do this next year, aren't you?" And I literally just met these people that week, and I started crying, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to do this. I got to do this." So it was just being there, immersed, seeing, because I was seeing people finish, whether it be the 250, any of the races, but the 250 and the 125. I'm like, that's me. They look like me. Like I can do this, because I think I was limiting myself that I could never do anything like that. But that changed me last year. That changed me big time. So yeah.
So why didn't you sign up for the 250?
Yeah, give me a couple of weeks. No, I don't know. Again, it goes back to self-limiting beliefs. One reason, I'll be honest, I think it was I had to have knee surgery last year, so I was kind of pretty much out all last year, and I needed a carrot. So I felt this was an appropriate carrot, even though I don't care for running through the East Coast winters training. But I've been running. I did the Black Canyon, which is obviously early on too, and I've done those. So the 250, we'll see, Jeff. We'll see.
You can say what I said, that the 125 is a good chance to test run this race to see if you want to do the 250.
Yeah,
that's your reason.
Yep, exactly.
That's so funny.
So this race is 3 weeks away from now.
20 days.
20 days.
But who's
ready?
counting?
Well, technically, if you were my athlete, we would start tapering.
Yeah, I have my last long run coming up this Saturday, 2 days, and that's it. Yeah, then taper.
So how are you feeling? You ready?
Good question. Yes-ish. The reason I'm hesitating, physically, the runs have been going well, knock on wood, the fueling, everything. Really good training run this past weekend with over 6,000 feet elevation. That was great. All that's going well. It's, to me, again, going back to type A, the logistics, like I will feel better knowing once I have all my drop bags, all my equipment, like, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff, like, and I talked to my crew chief and we're dialed in, then I think I'll be ready. And I still have a lot of work to do with that. But physically, I think I'm ready. Mentally, I think I'm ready. There has definitely been past couple of weeks. Again, I do have a countdown on my phone. And when it got into the 20s, I just sat there. I was like, oh, shit. Like, it was like, this is real. You know what I mean? Because I started the timer like 100 days out. Like, oh, I've got plenty of time. I got 3 months to train. And yeah, it's here. It's taper.
It's all about getting to the start line, and then all that kind of fades away.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny you mention that too, because again, I had surgery last June, and, I've basically been not rehabbing and stuff, but I just didn't know how it was going to go. And the other day, one of my friends asked me, they're like, yeah, how's your knee? I'm like, oh my God, it's fine. Like, I'm not even thinking about, I'm not even thinking about it.
That's
and it made me happy to know that, I'm doing the right things, even though times, I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's, oh my God, I should be doing more mobility. I should be doing more yoga. I should be drinking more water. I should be, I should. It's tough for me to shove that down, but it's so far so good.
So on that point, I think a lot of people at this point, or even a couple months ago, would have been doing exactly that. Should I be doing more mobility? Should I be doing more strength training? Should I be doing whatever these things are? You said earlier that you are also coached. So in your lead up for this race, what are the things that you and your coach said? We can't do everything. Like, we know physically, just because there's only so many days in a week, we all have lives unless we're professional athletes. And I don't think you are. I'm not. Steve's not. So because of that, we have to sometimes not do everything that we've read that ChatGPT said that we should do. Right? We recognize that we have to make a priority call.
Yep.
What did you and your coach focus on specifically that was like, we're going to at least focus here, because if we only have so much time to look at this, what we're going to do?
What do we focus on? She knew me pretty well. We obviously had our conversations, and I think I did throw a lot. I do like to do a lot of strength training and stuff, but she did come to that point. She's like, that's fine. And I knew this too, because again, I coach people, but it's different when it's you, that it needs to be more about running. The percentage needs to be more about, running, and you can deadlift here and there and do that stuff. And I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with it. And the other thing that prioritized too was sleep. I really, the recovery portion of it. I've been very diligent, and if it meant, waking up an hour later and getting a mile or two less run in, to me, that was fine. And I've been okay. And she's been okay with that, obviously. It's just, she's always asking how I'm feeling, so.
And then what would you tell your athletes that were preparing for a race like this, in terms of, like, how would you line them up? Maybe not just the running, but things outside running that they could do to kind of prepare themselves.
Outside of running, I don't want to say myself holistic, is just, are you eating enough? And you say drinking, people think water, but I'm very mindful about, electrolytes and that as such. So it's more about the whole rounding approach. Again, when I train people and they're like, oh, I had a tough day at work, whatever. And I'm like, don't run then. Just go home, stretch. My motto is there's no rest day, but that doesn't mean active. That just means 10 minutes laying down, stretching, I just something big mentally too, telling people just sit and envision yourself at the starting line. Envision yourself having, the best race. I mean, what you think is what's going to happen. So just practicing that mental capacity of the race too, just not the physical.
So to circle back, you mentioned that your coach told you that you needed to cut back a little bit of the strength training because maybe that you were doing that more often than not. And obviously you continued with some strength training, which is definitely advisable, particularly for a race like this where there's some climbing and stuff in it. But you guys spent a little bit more intentional time focusing on volume and running itself. So just for, and everybody's volume requirements are different, right? But for yourself, like what kind of volume were you putting in?
Volume, she aligned, and I called it TOF, time on the time on feet. So we kind of looked more, about the hours. So, but yes, it was miles, but it was definitely more about time on the feet. Like to give you an example, this past weekend was, actually, let me give you a better example. I'm going to tie in two things with kind of the strength and how I've been working with her. And something I did different. And I asked her, I said, if you don't agree with this, what I'm about to suggest, just say no. And I'm going to listen to you, So one thing I did different was incorporated rucking. I always kind of enjoyed it, but just kind of sparsely, whatnot. But locally here, a couple weekends ago, actually maybe 2 weekends ago, a brand new event called Ultra Trek. So it was at a local mountain, a 7-mile loop, and it was hiking. You could run, but it was either no pounds, 20 pounds, or 35 pounds that you carried. And I told her about it and where it was spaced in the training and stuff. And to me, that's still strength training, and it kind of combines the both. So for a good portion of my programming on Sundays was rucking. It wasn't running. It was throwing the 35 pounds on, time on the feet. And that I think is going to help me. And she aligned it to she said one of her clients found that because your pack, especially for Sedona and, Steve, for the 250, it's not light. It's not 35 pounds, but it's not light. And so the goal was, so I signed up for 4 loops, 28 miles with 35 pounds on it. 10-hour time cap. I knew it was going to be tough because during my training during the Sundays before, on a non-technical, nice day, I was able to get 7 miles in 2 hours, like pretty much consistently 2 hours. So I'm like, okay, but this course was 1,200 feet elevation. It poured raining the night before. It ended up being super, exactly, you know where I'm going, super muddy. And so 4 laps was out of the question, but I ended up doing it in the same time domain. I didn't get 4 laps in. I got the 3 laps in, but I still got 8.5 hours in. And that was the goal. The goal was, on your feet with 35 pounds for, 8 to 10 hours. So I was bummed I didn't get the 4th lap, but guess what? The goal still achieved. So she was always about that with the other long runs. And oh my God, I did, it rained and again, it was mud. So the time, I didn't do it fast enough, but she's like, I don't care. You actually spent more time on your feet. This is good. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's what we focused on.
I'm going to dig a little bit on this because wearing a weighted vest it's a good strategy. Like even for some runners to get used to carrying a pack, if you give them a treadmill workout that has some incline, they can wear a weighted vest to kind of mimic having a pack on. How did that help? Did you start with 35 pounds your first rucks? Because that's a lot of weight. Like if I were your coach, I'm going to say, hey, your first outing, we're just going to do 10 pounds. Yeah. Like because just changing that kills people's calves. Yeah. Like when they go for a walk with a 10-pound vest on, they're like, why are my calves sore? I'm like, because you're not used to walking with 10 pounds on your back.
It's different than the pack too.
Well,
it's a lot different.
Let's talk about that real quick too. There's a lot of people have the vest. I didn't do the vest. Ruck has this new pack, basically they call it. So imagine the 35-pound plate and it's held like right in your back. So I had all that weight on the back. And there's people there with, the vest because it's equally distributed. They're two different worlds, like unbelievably. To your other question, again, I used to say I played around a lot with rucking, but I used to do 45 pounds. I have a 45-pound plate. So going down to 35 felt not bad to me. But I never rucked as long as I have rucked now. I used to do, for an hour or two here and there for the 45 pounds. So going down to 35, it felt light initially, but having that on, especially during that ultra trek for 8 hours, oh my God, the trap and just your core just holding that up. Yeah, that was definitely different. Oh, and first loop, out there with my friends, we're having a good time, we're chit chatting, we're going. I tow a rock, and we've all fallen. But I remember as I was falling, going, I've never fallen this fast before, because 35 pounds on your back. I literally going, I had, the poles in my hand. I didn't have time. Like, I literally gone, this is going to hurt. And I was so lucky. Because it was a super rocky, rooty, and luckily my face found dirt, thankfully.
Yeah.
And my friends, I look up and they're all just like looking at me. They're like, you were talking. I was talking to them and they were just ahead of me. And then all we heard was, and just face full of mud. Yeah, that woke me up. That's just a funny story.
No, it's pretty good.
But
you got to get used to falling.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, again, we all fall, but I'm telling you, that was different. That I've never felt that fast, that hard. I'm like, oh my God.
Now you're going to be flying when you have your 10-pound Cocodona pack on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I hope. Yeah, I've been. Oh, yeah, it's funny. Then after that, I did 21 miles with that. My next run, she had me do I think it was 7 miles with some striders and stuff. Oh my God, I was like, woo, this is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's important, because if somebody's listening and they're thinking, well, my coach doesn't have me doing rocks and they're not having me do all these things. Again, it's always a product of what your time looks like.
Yep.
And so, Steve, I know you've got a stable of runners that you work with, and I have a few that I work with as well. And they're all different. And they all have different capacity to take on something like, let's add in a weighted vest, and others just have a product of time that just don't have the time. And so your coach, yourself as an individual, even if you're not coach, it doesn't matter. Like, as an individual, you have to look at all the different things you can do and say, what are the things I'm going to focus on, and add that to my repertoire, if you will, of things I'm going to do. Because you can hear what Todd's saying and you're like, why am I not doing a weighted vest? And it's because, well, you're doing all these other things, and perhaps you shouldn't add that to your list. But there is a lot of benefit to that, particularly on a race that long, where you're carrying a pack that long. And if you're doing Cocodona 250, I don't know if it's the same weight requirements for the Sedona 125, but I know the 250, it's a big pack that they have to carry.
Yeah.
I think the pack's
I don't think they have this. I don't think you have the same water restrictions for the Sedona 125 as they did for the Cocodona. And this year, they already put out that there's no water on the first part of the course. So they're like, don't even bring a life straw or a filter, because it's not, don't put it in your bag. It's going to just sit there.
Wow.
So it's going to be really dry.
You're talking about for the 250?
The 250, yeah.
Good luck with that. That's why we're doing the 125. Todd.
Exactly. I do get to see how beautiful Sedona is. This will be the first time I'll be able to see how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
So we mentioned at the beginning, you live in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
There's a variety of things that are different in Pennsylvania versus that you have in Arizona. Just straight up exposure is one thing to the sun, right?
Yeah.
Steve's slightly.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything such as heat acclimation, or are you using poles? We're talking about both of them.
Yeah. And thanks to Steve, and you can't see it, but right next to me is my little sauna that Steve suggested. So yes, I am doing it, and it's awesome, Steve. It's great, right? It is. Let me back up a little bit. So I used to do heat acclimation when I did the Black Canyon for the races in Arizona, the 60K and the 100K. But I went to a local yoga studio, had a great sauna. But I went once a week for half hour, whatever. It got me by. It worked. But then I started talking to Steve, and gave me the link for this, and I'm like, from a cost perspective, it was a no-brainer, because I'm paying just as much for once a week that I had to drive a half hour to, and this is in my basement. So every other night, 30 minutes I'm spending in there, and I think it's going to definitely help. Yeah,
I think it's invaluable.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
Races like that, especially one, because of the elevation, and then two, because of the heat.
Yeah,
the first couple of years I did it, I just layered up when I was running, which also adds another stress on top of that. And this is you're not really stressing yourself except for the heat.
Yep.
And the difference between the first 2 years and how I felt after the third year when I had done the heat acclimation is completely different.
Really? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I love the heat. Like, I love the desert. Again, when I did Black Canyon, I was worried about the first year when I did the 60K. I was worried about every point you're saying, Jeff. It's, it's sun, it's whatever. I'm East Coast. It's, but no, I handled it well. I mean, yeah, of course I had the hat for the head and all that stuff, but I thrive in the heat. Like, I love that. That's me.
So what kind of heat strategies are you putting in place then, other than doing heat acclimation with this sauna that Steve has told you about? Mm-hmm. Are you doing anything when you get out to Sedona 125 and let's say it's blazing hot, you're going to be happy that you've been doing the heat acclimation, but do you have any other strategies during the race that you're going to try to employ to deal with the heat?
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's a thing. It probably was a thing before I accidentally invented it myself, but I didn't invent it. Is just literally the wrist where you put ice packs kind of on the wrist. The one Black Canyon I did, I had, the sleeves that, obviously you can pull down and stuff. And I just happened to have them and kind of use them as a sweatband. And this woman, she made her own aid station crossing the road. She was sitting there giving out ice and water to runners, and she was amazing. And I took that ice, I'm like, I'm going to put it in my, my wrist and in my band. That was a game changer for me. That got me feeling chill, like taking the heat off of me. So I think I'm definitely going to do that. And obviously on the back of the neck. So those are some of the things I'm definitely going to do as well on this trip. So, yeah.
Very cool. What are you going to say? Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say that and keeping your head cool. Because as soon as your brain heats up, your brain's like, well, we're too hot. Let's shut everything down. So ice in the hat, anything like that. So
I have a plethora of hats to tie in back to the rim, not to go back to rim to rim to rim, but I lost my hat during the rim to rim to rim with this. So me and my buddy I would wear it for a half hour, then he wear it for a half. Like, we were literally switching a hat. I swear to God, somehow I lost a hat there. But yeah, so now I have multiple hats in my backpack in case I lose my hat.
Very cool. Are you planning on using poles while you're at Sedona?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, definitely.
And you practiced with them by any chance?
Not all the time, but yes, I didn't practice this past weekend. Every rucking I did use the poles. That Ultra Trek, I used them, nonstop for them. So, yeah. And nice. I used them my 100K too, because that was an absolute mud fest. But I brought them purposely to train for that as well. I met a guy, real quick, funny story about that. I met a guy doing his first 100K there, and it was a loop course. And I'm like, do you have poles? Because I can tell he's kind of struggling. He said, yeah, my wife has them. I'll get him next loop. And I saw him again. And I'm like, how the poles working out? And he goes, I don't know. I think I'm going slower. I'm like, no, it's your first 100K. You're just going slower because, you're in mile 50 right now. It's not the poles.
Unless he doesn't know how to use them.
Well, and honestly, I don't think he did yet. I mean, he was relatively new to the ultra world, and you're probably right to that point. But yeah.
That's fantastic. Steve, do we have any other questions about Sedona 125 we want to hit?
Yeah. So how are you prepping mentally for this? Because I went back to Yogi Berra had a quote where it says baseball is 90% mental and the other half physical. I kind of equate that to ultra running and everything like that, because when we get to the start line, I would say 98% of us are physically fit. We're ready to go there. And it's the mental side of the game that usually takes us out. So how are you prepping for this mentally?
Trying to do a couple of things. One, it's just literally visualization and kind of going through in my mind, pretending it's Wednesday morning, pretending it's 7:00. Everything from putting on the clothes, what am I having for dinner? It sounds dumb, but just that visualization, of it all. I kind of tie in real quick. I did years ago when I was knee deep in the CrossFit world and stuff, there was this workout coming out the next day. And that night I visualized everything. I kept playing it over in my head. That ended up being one of the best workouts I ever did in my life. So I've always attributed that. I mean, I know you can't visualize 125 miles the entire time, but anything I can find online, mentally seeing, part of the course. I wish they had some training runs out there for portions of the course. I wanted desperately. To me, yes, that was about physical, but I wanted to see the course. So anything I can find online to kind of visualize how I'm going with respect to that. Mental training, putting yourself, and it's part of the physical training, but just like, again, that 100K I recently did, just putting yourself in tough positions and just training your brain, training, this is tough. This, I've got to do it. And the more of those tougher things you have, and that ultra trek, that was honestly one of the most difficult things. I've never had that much weight on. Did I want to go out for that last loop? No, I didn't. I was back in my truck. I could have just stopped and called it a day, but I know there's going to be many, many times I'm just going to want to stop, so just mentally training that you always have more in the tank.
I like the visualization too. And what I try to get my athletes to do, and I do myself, is not only visualize the good parts of the race that are going to happen, but it's going to be what happens when something when something bad happens. How are you going to handle that? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like?
Yep.
When you're thirsty, you're dehydrated, how are you going to keep moving? Those kind of things.
Yep. I think I've recently, again, I feel like I'm always learning. It's just when those situations hit, don't frantically look for an answer. Just be quiet. The answer will tell itself. I'm going to give you an example. Recently got new shoes, again, trying to make what shoes I'm going to use and whatnot, and had these shoes on. I'm going for a run. I'm on a trail, and my left foot just felt weird. And it was tight, and I was getting all upset. I'm like, oh my God, I thought these were going to be the shoe, whatever. And I just stood there and I just relax. And when I relaxed, I went, untie your shoe and just maybe make it a little loose. I did that. My foot was fine. I tied my shoe too tight. It was something that simple. And then I was happy the rest of the run. So it's just relax. The answer will come to you, and you'll be fine.
So yeah, and one of the things you mentioned in your email to us, there's a quote that you have, and it really ties into what you're talking about a lot. And I'm going to read it to you because it's always good to confront people with the mirror of their words. And it says, I've learned to sit with discomfort, to listen to the quiet voice inside that says, keep going, even when everything else says stop. I've met the best and worst parts of myself on the trail, and somehow they've all earned a place. So Steve and I, we both love this quote a lot. We think it's just powerful and everything. So there's a couple questions on it, but the first one really is, how did you learn this about yourself?
Boy, that's a good one. How did I learn this about myself? What's coming to me was my first 100-mile race. Any obviously long race, but your first 100-mile race, you talk about those negative situations where you're getting in, your own head, and it's the end of the world. And oh my God, why am I doing this? I can't do this. And I don't know. I remember at one point of that 100-mile race, again, I didn't realize at the time, I just kind of breathed, I relaxed, and I'm like, all right, so you're hurting. Big deal. Everybody's out here, hurting. It's common. It's fine. You're not gonna die. You're fine. I was making it worse, and then just by relaxing into that, I think there's another quote out there I'm stealing from somebody, but you make peace with that side of yourself. And I did. I just was like, it's not like I can do about it, and just move on. So I think that's where it came from, that 100-mile race. I remember those initial pains and those, mile 60 to 80 where it just felt like eternity out there.
Well, in that same quote, you said you met the best and worst parts of myself along the trail.
Yeah.
What do you mean by the best and worst parts of yourself?
Best.
Like how raw did you go?
Oh.
Yeah, because most people only meet the best of themselves out there, or at least that's what they think anyway.
I think the best is kind of easy. I don't want to say easy. I had a friend tell me once, she said my superpower is I get stronger the longer like a race goes on. And I don't know if I want to believe it, or I think I do believe it. I think that is my superpower, is just I do feel stronger the longer races go on. And I'm not talking physically, you know what I mean? Everyone reaches that point physically. You are where you are. I think it's more about mentally. The worst is, I think, you know this, you think about so many things, and when you're out there for long hours and you're raw, that's a word I use a lot for myself, you start thinking about your life and choices you made, and it brings up those things, and I don't want to call them regrets, but it's things you wish you would have done different. Like, it's amazing the things that come up, and you're just faced with them. You're faced with them out there, and I don't know. I get upset, but I'm like, well, that's the decision I made. You're faced with it, and I've learned from those personal decisions, and and you can move on with it, but just sitting with it, because there's nothing else to think about. You're so beat down,
Yeah.
you're so tired, but it's weird those thoughts come. So when I say the worst, it's usually not about physical or mental. It's just something in my life,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I think.
Oh, yeah. I think it's great.
You're gonna have I think you're gonna have a great time out at Sedona, looking at both sides of that coin again.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great thing, like to put ourselves in those situations where we are going to be open to see where we excel, to see where we struggle. And I think that's why a lot of us do ultras in the first place. We learn a lot about ourselves, and so we love to kind of talk about this to other people, that ultra running has changed us and everything, and that it's impacted us in 1,000 different ways. For you yourself, like, how has ultra running impacted you or changed you and who you are?
I feel, how has it changed me? When I think ultra running, when I think trails, when I think this, it just excites me. It makes me, this morning waking up to get a run, I'm excited to wake up. I'm not excited to do my job, but I was excited to get up and go for a run and be outside. It's just finding that excitement in life. And for me, that's it. Just being in the mountains, being in the dirt, being with his friends. It just opened up my world. And I kind of go back again to the rim to rim, that first out there in nature for a long period of time. That was it. That was one of the most impactful things in my life. Yeah.
And what did you learn about yourself?
You can do hard things. Well, it sounds cliche. You can do hard things. Yeah. What else did I feel like there's another answer there. What did I learn about myself? Yeah. It's just, I'm capable of so much more in other aspects of my life. I think, again, we all in some aspects limit ourselves. Like I said to you earlier, like, okay, yep, I did 100 mile. I don't need to do 100 mile again. But being at Cocodona last year, it was like, nope, that's not the limit for me. I know deep down inside, it's not the limit. And 125 may not be the limit, knock on wood, that everything goes fine. So it's just, about pushing through those limits.
Yeah, it's not about the finish line, and it's not about the race. It's really about the experience in a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I called it everything an adventure. Like, people, you have a race this weekend? I'm like, kind of an adventure this week. It's an adventure. Like, think about it. It's literally an adventure. It's a very organized adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's why I like it. Like, when you think of it that way, instead of, there's some athletes that think of it as like a battle, like you're going into battle, you have your battle plan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when you think of it that way, it's more like, for me anyway, I think that's like, you're putting it up there on a pedestal a little bit, and like, it's not that serious. Like, we're not going into battle.
Yeah.
Two, if you look at it as a battle, there's a wins and a loss, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody wins, somebody loses. But if you're going in it and it's just an adventure, it's like, hey, we're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to do something you love. I would do these adventures, and I do, and I think of adventures all the time that are endurance related. They're nothing. It's just me making up something locally that's pushing myself. You know what I mean? It might be just me. Yeah. Like, I have one I want to do this year. That's just going to be me. It's not going to be on ultra sign up. It's not going to be anywhere. It's just me coming up with some ultra adventure, and I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? So
I think that's great.
So tell us, though, about, again, at the very beginning, Steve, in the introduction, he mentioned that you were a coach for this, that you call Greater Than Endurance. I believe that's also your Instagram handle as well. Yep. And you have a philosophy, if you will, or a message just in general about people needing to go outside and challenge themselves. So you've got these two things that you're about, Greater Than Endurance, going outside and challenging yourself. It's like this message that you have for people. Can you tell us about both of these? Like, how do they work together? And really, how did Greater Than Endurance come to be in the first place?
Greater Than Endurance, it was great. It was, where are we at? We're in 2025 now. About 8-ish years ago, a group of friends were like literally just kind of texting. I don't know how the topic came up, but it was they were basically pushing me, saying you should start. You would be a great coach. Have a coaching job. Online. So we just started talking about, what we call it, and I think we collectively kind of came up with Greater Than Endurance. Again, for me, that's meeting that pushing through your self-imposed limits physically and mentally. And then my buddy literally, like, wherever he was at, drew on a napkin and sent a picture, which I still have, of that symbol of greater than E, like the greater sign with the inside the E. So that's how it started. And I never remember being so excited for something. I literally that day then, all right, how do I go on the computer? How do I do an LLC? And I created the LLC. I got like literally in the day, like just blew through it all. So that's how that got started. And I know we were kind of talking too in the pre-questions is, what's your website? So yeah, I bought, a website, which I've never launched because I just kept playing around with the pictures and the verbiage and stuff. But while that's going on, people just started coming to me. They build it, they will come. And people just started coming to me. And those people, the one thing, obviously I learned, I said earlier on how, I went online, Googled how to do a marathon and then the cookie cutter. And I knew with coaching, I didn't want cookie cutter. Like my plan, though I have a general idea with people, if it's, a 16-week plan or a race or whatever it might be, every week I do it the week before, I program for them very specifically. We have conversations, whether it be online or in person, and customize it to that. And the thing I wanted to do, and it kind of happened naturally, people came to me on, hey, it's not a race, but I'm trying to get into the Army, or local neighbors, their daughter wanted to do more strength training for lacrosse to get into a D1 school. I loved that. Like that was awesome to me. That just strictly wasn't running. But I always sneak in, kind of tying into your question to get people outside, is I always quietly influence or do stuff that's outside, with them. Like, for example, the client for the D1 lacrosse had a sled at my house and we would be outside, just pushing a sled, like stuff that was still at least outside. Clients come to me asking for races. I would always not sway them to the trails and stuff, but just, I think a lot of people with trails, they just, I can't do trails. That's, whatever. And I just, invite them, or I go do it with them or something like that. And so I'm always kind of nudging them to that way. So yeah, I quietly just nudge people outside and to move and incorporate. And even in my training, sometimes I go back to there's no rest day in their programming. I'm like, go walk for 30 minutes outside today. That was their rest. I made sure just get them outside, which they said they normally wouldn't have done. The rest day, they thought rest days were just sitting around doing nothing. I'm like, no, rest days, you can move. It's okay. But just get outside, to do that. So.
That's so cool. So I have yet to find a coach. Let me figure out how the best way I want to parse this, because coaches get paid to coach people. They all do. Like unless they work for a public school, they don't get paid really anything else. But coaches get paid to coach people, and a lot of people on the other side of the conversation think that we're in it because we're looking to get paid. And it's really not the truth at all. Like, I have a full-time job. I do coaching on the side.
Yep.
And I do a podcast with Steve here because we love the sport. And I just want people to do ultra running. And if they need somebody to come alongside them to help them, I'm here to help you do it. That's kind of the idea. So for yourself, what drives you to actually try to coach people? It can't be for the paycheck. Because I'm sure you're not getting rich from it. Most of us aren't.
No, not even right. Close.
So what drives you?
I enjoy it. It's selfish. I enjoy helping people. I love seeing people cross out. I'll give you two kind of big examples. One person, their endurance, their goal was to run a mile nonstop. And then I had another client hired me to do his first 100-mile race. The joy they expressed to me, I'm getting choked up thinking about it, they were equal. It didn't 1 mile, 100 miles. It didn't matter. Their joy that I helped bring into their lives. I mean, they did the work, but me being a part of it, that's what drives me. Just seeing that. Again, people have to put in the work, but I'm getting chills thinking about it. It just that's what brings me joy. Just getting people to their goal. And I love when a majority of people that come to me are in that space of, hey, I did a 10K. I want to do a half marathon, and it's just that, again, that greater than endurance, getting them, building their confidence to get to that next stage. Yeah. And when they do it, it's awesome. You know the feeling.
Listen, I would be remiss to not talk about the fact that I have an athlete this week who told me that they ran their first mile. They ran sustained for 20 minutes and it covered more than a mile.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say her name, but she wrote in her comment to me on Training Peaks, she says, I am a superhero. And I thought, I'm crying reading this because I have wanted this for her for so long. And she's had the ability, like she has the ability to do it. but she has struggled with the confidence and to believe in herself. And to me, man, that moved me so much. And it's like, if you could like group hug somebody online, that's what I wanted to do. It's like, cause like it's an online relationship, but it's like high five in the air all day because it's just an incredible thing. And it just validates that person so much and just the time and investment. And so I was just curious because I don't think people understand that side, because when people go into coaching, it's because we really care about people and we really want them to improve or to instill confidence. Steve, I know you're the same way. So
and I love it because, like you said too, it's where like once you start believing in them, they start believing in themselves that they can do it, and that's where the magic happens. That's awesome.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of coaches, because, we've all just kind of talked about it for a bit, which is not the goal of the podcast. Like it is just where we went. But we do a segment at the end of our show every time that we call Coach's Corner, where we've invited listeners to submit questions to us through Instagram or through whatever channel they want to. Sometimes it's athletes who Steve or I work with who said, hey, I have a question. I'm like, well, that can translate over to the show as well. Whatever. Like they come to us for a variety of different reasons. But we do have a question that has come in that we would like to pose for Coach's Corner. And so, Todd, you get to answer this with us, but we'll go before you, so no pressure to have to go first. The question comes from Denise Fox, and she's actually local here in my area, but she did submit it through Instagram, and she said she's planning to run the Table Rock Ultra this year. Her question is, she says, I live in a flat area with no elevation. How do I train vert and technical mountain trail? Now, before we answer, some background on the Table Rock Ultra, because we figured we should at least look into this a little. Again, she lives in Wilmington area, so it is flat. So we did some research, and the race has an elevation gain of 5,700 feet for 50K. It is a technical trail. And so there is some climbing that she's going to have. The race is September 20th. Any thoughts?
If at all possible, do what you can to get on the course or something similar to that. But if you can't, you can always at least train for the elevation. Like the trail, you're going to be doing things a little bit differently, but you can train through the elevation through Stairmaster, put in a treadmill on incline, or finding a parking garage where you're just going up and down the stairs repeatedly. It's going to stink, but it's going to help you out in the end. But if at all possible, try to get on that course.
Yeah, I would echo the same things. Like I've trained here in Wilmington for mountain races and things, it's hard. We don't have a lot of elevation and everything. So the strategy really is to put yourself on a treadmill, put yourself on a stepper, run downtown where we have very small hills, but we do have parking decks, and to go up and down those parking decks all day long. And just like what I would do is I would run up the stairs on the deck, and then run the ramps down and then back up the stairs. And so I could get some downhill running that way, which is really hard to do in a flat location. You can't get on a treadmill, you can't get on a stepper. And so the best place to get some downhill running for a flatlander is really in a parking garage going down the ramps. Now you have to do it when there's not a lot of traffic in the garage, because otherwise it's dangerous. So you have to go when it's early morning before everybody gets out there. So the other thing, Todd, I don't want to steal your thunder, but if you don't say it, I'm going to come back with something you said earlier in the show. So I'll let you answer first.
Sure. Yeah, everything you guys said, and there's a couple of things I was thinking of too, is I don't say worry about mobility, but just doing things that are more lateral too. If you're talking technical, you are doing a little bit more left and right. So whether it be Cossack squats or just movement, and say even if you're running up and down the parking lot ramps, don't run straight. Maybe run left and right, with a little bit more angle. I'm a big fan of single leg modality, like you're saying. Even if it's a step stool or something, just stepping up repeatedly on your left leg, maybe adding in some weights too. I keep hearing you say technical, like, so how do you mimic that if it's, flat, or maybe just go out into the grass again, just do some cuts, just something that's making your ankles and your feet going left and right. You know what I mean? Something as simple as that.
The only thing I was thinking you may add is to throw a pack on her back, and so that she gets some weight on that thing too.
Yeah.
Because with that kind of gain and over 50K, unless she's trying to win it, she's going to be doing some hiking, right? Yeah. And so as a flatlander getting on a course with that kind of elevation and it's technical, she's going to do some time on feet training. And so some things you talked about earlier, I think would be very applicable here as well. But I love the idea of the modalities and the dorsiflexion of your ankles and trying to work on some of that. I think is spot on. Extra accessory work that can be done too. So Denise, we hope you are ready for the Table Rock Ultra. you can definitely reach out to me if you got any questions. You know that. So I appreciate you sending the question and hope to see you around sometime in a parking deck like me. But anyhow, Denise, again, thank you so much for sending the question. And Todd, that was Coach's Corner. You rocked it. You probably are the best coach in this group. So we appreciate you for giving us the time to answer the question with us. We appreciate you so much for joining us today. Steve, do you have anything else for Todd before we let him go?
I think that was it.
Awesome.
Really appreciate you being here.
No, I thank you for having me. I'm stoked. Do it again next year before my 250.
There. We may hold you to that, Todd. But yeah. So for everybody listening, thank you so much for taking the time to join us to hear from Todd, to hear how he's going to pursue the Sedona 125. So if you're listening to this episode when it gets released on the 2nd, throw up some thoughts, some prayers, some stargazing ideas, whatever it is you believe in, right? And just wish him the best, because he starts on May 7th, which is just a few days later. And so he'll definitely be listening to this podcast, but it'd be better if you reach out to him and give him a message of encouragement. That'd be really cool. So thank you for taking the time to listen to the episode. For those of you that have not subscribed, I guess we still like you. Right. But anyway, thanks for taking the time. Please go ahead and hit the follow, hit the likes, hit the subscribe, whatever. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you as well. And if you've got questions for Coach's Corner, go ahead and submit those in as well. We can ask them on a future episode. And again, Todd, thank you for being with us. We look forward to following along at Sedona. Everybody will be watching the live stream, and so we'll be able to keep an eye and look for you as well.
Cool. Thank you, Steve.
Hopefully I'll see you out there.
Yep.
All right,
definitely.
Man. Well, we'll see you soon. See ya.
See you guys. Bye.